you all for coming. This is a pretty great attendance given that we are kind of at the end of the in-person part of the semester. Thank you all for being here. Our guest today, Lydia Martinez, has been an entrepreneur from a very young age. She also has a very interesting background in terms of her career. Among the jobs that she has listed is Chief Taster. Chief Taster at Restaurant Owners Marketing Academy. If anyone has found a way to taste food for a living, you should pay attention to their advice, to their career advice, okay? She and her husband own the Suitcase Foodist, which is a food and wine blog. She's worked for Whole Foods and for Sugar House Farmers Market. Lydia Martinez is founder and strategist of L Marketing Events. We are very glad to have her and her husband, Greg, here.
Thank you so much, everyone. I am so delighted to be here. Again, my name is Lydia Martinez, and I own multiple companies. One of the things that you'll find about most entrepreneurs is that we are serial entrepreneurs. It is not enough to start one business. Once we start one business, we're going to have an idea, and we're going to start another business, and then we're going to start another business, and we're going to start another business. So as you are on your path with your career or looking into entrepreneurism, just know it becomes addictive. So I'll say that right off the bat. My two principal businesses, L Marketing and Events. We are a marketing and event production company. And then, of course, Restaurant Owners Marketing Academy. To give you a little bit of my background, I started my first business when I was 8 years old. How many of you have ever owned a business or started a business or sold something amazing? I love seeing that. When I ask you to raise your hands, though, like loud and proud, guys, way up high, how many of you have owned a business before? Way to go. Amazing. And so I started my very first business when I was 8 years old. It was selling tree climbing lessons to the local neighborhood kids. Now, I don't want to think about the liability of that knowing what I do now, but at the time, I was selling tree climbing lessons. My second business was about a year later. I was selling rocks that I would find that were interesting and unique, and I'd polish them up and sell them. Sometimes door to door, sometimes through coercion of my neighbors, probably, but I made a nice, tidy sum of about $50 selling rocks and tree climbing lessons. Those were my first two businesses. And I've got my bio up here just so you can look at this. But one of the things that I really want to talk about today is how your story truly defines who you are as an entrepreneur, as an employee, as somebody that is out there in the workforce. Whether you're starting your own business, whether you're working just for yourself, whether you are hiring other people, your story defines who you are, and it sets up your values, your goals, what it is that sets you apart, what it is that makes you unique. And so really today, what I want to talk about is owning your story and then owning your business. So I started my career in marketing and event planning as the marketer and event planner for Barnes & Noble. I don't know if any of you have heard of a little book called Harry Potter, maybe? Anybody? Yes? I used to do all the giant midnight release parties for those books. Back before Amazon and you just ordered it, you had to go to the bookstore and stand in line to buy the book at midnight if you wanted it the day that it came out. And so I used to plan all those big parties. It was my first big job. And from there, I did that for several years. Then I became the marketer and event planner for Whole Foods Market, the largest national organic, natural, and organic grocery store in the United States. And so I got to market books and coffee. And then I got to market food and wine and events around food. And as part of that, just kind of on the side, because I loved it, I started doing consulting for different restaurants, just on the side with marketing or helping them with their food events. I started the Sugar House Farmers Market kind of on the side as a volunteer thing and loved that. So I was the founder of the Sugar House Farmers Market and ran that for several years. And then from there, something wasn't quite adding up. I'd been doing this particular job, all told for about 12 years between Barnes & Noble and Whole Foods. And I thought that I was going to move up. That was my goal. This was my career. I had my path. I was working on getting a promotion. Things kept not working out. Not only that, but if I got a promotion, I would have had to move. It would have involved a relocation as well. Then one day, they pulled me into the office at Whole Foods and they said to me, "Hey, remember that promotion that you've always wanted? Do you remember that thing? Well, guess what? It's yours. Silver platter. Here it is. Enjoy. Oh, and you have about 24 hours to decide. And by the way, we're also eliminating your existing position. But hey, you get this promotion. It's yours." And so I drove home that day thinking, I'm going to take this promotion. It's what I've always wanted. I'm going to get that great big raise. I've been working towards this for years. And I was driving home and I felt sick to my stomach. Like literally ill. And I got home and I walked into the house and I said to my husband, I think I'm going to quit my job tomorrow. Can anybody imagine what he said? He said, "Do it." And then he pointed out to me for the very first time that, hey, guess what? You haven't actually been happy in this job for a couple of years. You haven't felt challenged. You haven't seemed excited about it. Without somebody telling me that, I don't know if I would have noticed. So having those cheerleaders, having those people that help you own your own story is really important as you are working on your own path, as you're becoming an entrepreneur, as you're entering the workforce. That's something that's really important, to have those people that are your cheerleaders, but also your checkpoint. Am I on the right path? Am I telling my story the way I want it to be told? So one of the things that I challenge each of you to do is to craft your story. What is your story? What is that thing that makes you you? You have to shape it yourself, because guess what? If you don't do that, someone else will do it for you, and that's how you end up in a box that maybe you don't want to be in. So crafting your story is really important. Define your why. Why do you want to do what you do? For me, when I was looking at all the different things that gave me satisfaction in my career, the thing that I kept coming back to was that I loved being able to help other people. That's where I got my satisfaction. Now, as a business owner that has clients, I'm able to help those clients tell their story through marketing, through events. And that brings me a great deal of personal and professional satisfaction. I've defined my story and why I do what I do. And that is what keeps me happy and keeps me engaged, even on the hard days. Because being an entrepreneur is hard sometimes. A lot of times. It's a bit of a roller coaster. And so hanging on to that why in your story is really important. The other thing that's really important is to be authentic. Defining your story and saying, this is who I am, this is what I want to be, that will actually help you stay true to yourself long-term beyond just the day-to-day. And if you're not there now, it'll help you carve a path ahead to where you want to be. So for me, one of the things that I did is I came up with some keywords that define me. And as I'm talking through these, I want you to think through what are some keywords that you want to define you in your story, in your life, as a worker, as an employee, as an entrepreneur, as a student. What are some of those things? So for me, one of the things that's really important to me is to be bold. I love that word, be bold. Have courage. Be creative. I love being creative. I love that process of thinking through a problem and finding a solution. Be authentic. Be playful. I have a tendency to be a workhorse to the point that I can put blinders on and put my head down and forget to play a little bit. And so I actually made that a tenet for myself, something that I want to make sure that I'm doing, but also that I'm showing this playful side of my personality. I can come off as very polished and professional sometimes, but it's okay to leave room for that playfulness. Analytical, strategic, knowledgeable, and willing to share my knowledge is something else that's important to me in my story. So, what are some of your key words? What is something that is important to you in your story that helps define you as who you are? Anybody feeling bold enough to share? I know it's very personal, so if not, yes?
That would be fun. I want to make
Fun.
it fun,
I love it.
entertaining, even though it's going to be, kind of mundane sometimes. But
Fun and entertaining, despite the mundaneness of life and work and things like that. I love that. Anybody else want to share? Back in the back. Impactful. I love that. Impactful, making a difference. I'm a big believer that making an impact, even if it's in your small corner of the world, is how we actually make the world a better place. By starting in our corner and expanding out. I love that. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing. So, first of all, as an entrepreneur, one of the things that you need to do to own your story is to be bold. It takes courage. Being in business takes courage. Life takes courage. Decide to be bold now so that when opportunities come, you are ready to take them. Now, that story I told, that origin story I call it, about how I started my business, that's a great story, right? But guess what? There was some stuff behind that. Before that even happened, I'd already decided to be bold and take opportunities that came when they were right. So going back to that origin story of how I left Whole Foods Market, at the beginning of that year, I had told my husband and my family that I didn't want to work in retail anymore. I said I was done with it. I didn't want to do another holiday season, and I wanted to be out by the beginning of October. And then I got a little afraid. I was like, well, I can just suck it up. I'm a hard worker. I'll just do this. I'll make it happen. It's okay. It's not that big of a deal. I can just do this, even though I'm not necessarily feeling it anymore. Well, I put that out there, that I didn't want to work another holiday season in retail. So, guess what day I was sat down in my manager's office to talk about that new career opportunity and that new promotion. It was September 29th. Guess which was my last day at Whole Foods Market? It was October 1st. I had already said that that's what I wanted. I put it out there. And when I realized the timing of that, what I realized was that if I didn't take that opportunity that had just been handed to me to make a major change, if I wasn't bold, in that moment, guess what? You lose your opportunities. I wanted to have more opportunities handed to me and to have the courage to take them. But if I faltered, if I was afraid, if I didn't do it in that moment, take that step into the dark, then guess what? Do you think I'd be getting more opportunities? Maybe, maybe not, but it would have been harder to take them. One of my clients, her name is Sylvia. She owns a spice company. She's owned it for 7 years. She also had an amazing corporate career working as a logistics analyst. Sounds really exciting, right? But she was really good at what she does. But her passion, she's from Zimbabwe, and her passion was around this spice company. She'd run it for 7 years, And about 6 weeks ago, she and I had our very first appointment. Just as a consulting client, I was going to help her with some of her marketing strategy and some events and live streams and things like that for the holidays. And in that very first meeting, she said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something else today. I am struggling because I want to leave my current position and I want to start my own company. And I'm just so afraid, and I know that, or I want to focus on my own company, and I'm just so afraid to do it. How do I do that and have the courage to do that?" And so we talked through it, and I challenged her to do the same thing I had done. Pick a date. Say I'm going to do it. And then I said, tell somebody else. Don't just tell one somebody, tell two somebodies that is what you're going to do. That is your challenge. That's your homework assignment. You're going to go do that tonight. And so she did. She picked a date. She told her mom, and she told a trusted spiritual advisor. And the date was 30 days out. Does that sound bold to you? That was pretty bold, right? That date was 30 days out. The very next day, she called me, and she was giddy excited. Walmart had called her and wanted to meet with her about carrying her spice blends. This is a game changer for her. And so we rushed and started to get her pitch decks ready and started planning her messaging and things like that and started doing our research for pitching Walmart. She had an amazing pitch. They're going to be bringing her spices in on a regional level. Was there a direct correlation? Maybe, maybe not. But let me tell you, she was ready to take that step, and she was bold enough to talk about doing it. So that's one of the things that I would always say is be bold. Be flexible. Things don't go as planned. This was a press release here, this photo that we were doing for the Salt Lake City Busker Fest. I was doing all the PR, social media, and marketing around a huge street performer festival. So think jugglers and sword swallowers and musicians and things like that all perform on the street. It's a really fun event. So we were doing a press junket, so we had a bunch of live TV coming to film some of our performers in downtown Salt Lake City. And, things just don't go as planned. We've got the media there, they're filming, and right as one of our performers started, we had someone who was probably mentally ill come down the street and start screaming at the top of their lungs during that live feed. And you couldn't hear anything else. You couldn't see anything else. The performers were distracted. I was very concerned for the guy juggling knives. And so that was one of those moments where I was standing behind the scenes directing things and then had to step out from being behind the scenes and just say in front of the cameras, we're going to take a quick pause and let everybody catch their breath, and we're going to start again in a moment. Things don't go as planned. You can plan everything out perfectly. Something will go wrong, so plan on that. And you don't always know what that's going to be. So one of the things, just with being able to be flexible, is you want to give yourself space for the unexpected. And sometimes the unexpected works out better. Sometimes that's the thing or the path or the idea that ends up being the better idea. And so give yourself space for those moments of joy and those moments of flexibility. So be creative. Problems always come up. They always come up. So focus on creative solutions. This was an event that I was producing. It was one of 2 times that I ever produced a wedding. And for those of you that know my brother who was here at SUU, this was his wedding. It was a Chinese-Mexican wedding. My dad's side of the family is from Mexico, and my brother was marrying a woman from China, and so we were combining a couple of different traditions. and I am directing the videographer. I'm talking to my dad here in this photo because he was going to be helping to officiate. And I had a toddler crawl up onto the steps while we were doing this, and I just had to grab on him so he didn't tumble backwards. Be creative, problems come up. One of my favorite moments where a pretty big problem came up led to one of the best things in my life. I was the event planner at Barnes & Noble, and I was doing a book signing for Jimmy Carter. He was coming in to sign books. And anytime you're doing anything with a former president even, guess who's there? Secret Service. So with the Secret Service being there, I had to have I had to have Secret Service clearance to be anywhere near him. And I had to have a Secret Service badge to be even up close to him. So for a book signing, usually a book signing, somebody will come in and they'll hand the book to the person, and the person there will sign it, and then they'll hand it back. Not so with Jimmy Carter. You would hand the book to somebody, you would hand it to somebody else, who'd hand it to somebody else. I would open it to the proper page, hand it to Jimmy Carter, somebody else picks it up, hands it to somebody else, hands it to somebody else. They hand it back. You're not allowed within 10 feet of him at this book signing. So there's a Secret Service guy that's there, he's coordinating everything. I think it was his very first assignment. He seemed very kind of wet behind the ears and really, really gung-ho. So he walks up to me and he says, "Hey, I need you to create a secure pathway from the safe room to the book signing table with an impermeable barrier, and I need you to do that now." And in my head, I'm like, I've got 5,000 people in line. I've got the media here. Like, I can't deal with one more thing because I've got a bunch of things that I have to be doing too. So I grabbed somebody that worked there and I was like, "Hey, I need you to create an impermeable barrier by moving all these fixtures." So I gave him a specific task. I came up with a solution. I need you to move all these fixtures and create a pathway that goes from the safe room, which was just the receiving room, to the book signing table for Jimmy Carter, and I need you to do that now. And then I walked away. So that guy that I grabbed was my creative solution. That guy that I grabbed is also right here in the room right now. I married him a little while later. This is my husband, Greg. Also, I didn't know that was him until we'd been married for 2 years. I had blinders on, and I didn't even realize. I just grabbed a warm body. But he came in handy then. He still comes in handy now. I think I'll keep him. So creative solutions can lead to your better option down the road. Just be sure that you don't get lost in the overwhelm when problems come up. Focus on the solution. And speaking of solving problems, every good business solves a problem. Sometimes you have to define the problem because people don't even realize that it's a problem that they had. So when we're talking about solving a problem, sometimes the problem is as simple as, "I'm hungry." You and I were talking earlier, right at the beginning, that your goal is to open some sort of restaurant. You're still figuring out the details. But the problem you're solving is, "Man, I'm hungry." Sometimes the problem's that simple. Sometimes it's bigger. Sometimes it's more nebulous. The problem that I try to solve for people is, I don't know how to tell my story in an impactful way that will help people make a decision to become a client or a customer or click buy. We just did, my marketing agency just did a product launch this past Friday. It's for a company called Hugo Coffee Roasters. Their tagline is fantastic: "Drink coffee, save dogs." So it's a social good company, and for a percentage of every single purchase of coffee, they give back to a dog rescue organization. They're making a big, big impact. They've donated in the vicinity of $30,000. so far since they started doing donations, and they're just growing and growing. So coffee, a lot of people drink coffee, but also they're trying to appeal to this demographic of dog owners. But guess what? There's a million coffee choices out there. So many. You can go to Starbucks. You can go to your local coffee shop. You can pick up a bag of coffee at the grocery store. You can brew coffee at home. You can do instant coffee at home. So they've tried to find solutions for things that they can solve one more problem in addition to rescuing dogs. So the product that we just launched this past Friday are single-serving brew bags. It's coffee that brews like a tea bag, which is really, really unique. There's only one other company that does this right now in the United States. So the challenge was brewing a good cup of single-serving coffee, but that doesn't use plastic pods because those are not very environmentally friendly. They're not biodegradable. They mostly end up in landfills. So it solves that sustainability issue. They're made out of biodegradable bags that are made out of bamboo. There's the single serve issue, where a lot of times if you want 1 cup of coffee, you have to pull out all your coffee making apparatus. You may have to grind the beans. You may have to pull out a French press. You may have to have a coffee maker. This single serving bag eliminates all that. All you need is hot boiling water and a cup. How many of you can boil water? You're in college, I hope so. Good, good, good. All right, you guys are ahead of the game. So, and they need a cup. And then the other thing was, is it good coffee? So most coffee that you just add hot water to, it's instant, it's crystallized, it's not very good, it tastes stale. So the challenge is brewing an artisan cup of coffee very, very easily. And they solved that as well. It's their actual roasted coffee that's small batch roasted by their expert roaster. And I'm actually standing right by that roaster right there. So that's what it looks like, and this roaster is a sustainable roaster too. So it doesn't release particulates out into the air. Problem, solution. Probably most people didn't realize that this was a problem. But Hugo Coffee Roasters just provided a solution. Ask for help. This slide is mostly for me, guys. This is one of my biggest challenges. As an entrepreneur, here's what a lot of people don't tell you. As an entrepreneur, you know the things about your business. You know what your vision is. You know what your idea is. You know what your concept is. You know how to get from point A to point B, but there are so many things that you don't automatically know. You don't necessarily know, like, how do I hire my first employee? And what paperwork do I need? You may not know how to do marketing. You may not know how to organize your books and take care of your finances. When I first started my business, I wasn't even 100% sure how to legally pay myself. I knew marketing, I knew event production, I knew how to do all those things, but I also didn't have the option of like starting a business and waiting 2 years for it to be profitable. I needed to contribute to my family's income right off the bat. And so because of that, I realized that I had to ask for help. And help can come in a lot of forms. And I'm still learning this. So now I have a team of 12 people, and I have an executive assistant. I have a project manager. I have a content manager. I have a photographer, videographer. I have an event production team. And so I have all these people that are helping me. But sometimes I'm still like, oh, I can just do that really quickly myself. I'll just do it myself. And I need to be letting go of that. The other thing is ask for help from the experts in your life. One of the best things I did kind of in my second year in business was I actually did some subcontracting for a bigger marketing agency. And she was more than willing to be an amazing mentor. She brought me in. She was another fellow woman-owned business. She'd been in the industry for about 20 years. And so she brought me in and had me work on some of her projects so I could see how she ran a team. Because I quickly realized that I wasn't going to be able to keep things up and keep going if I didn't have help, but I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know how to organize my agency in a way to take the load off of me just a little bit so that I could focus on big picture. So ask for help. Help comes in the form of advisors here at school, professors. It comes in the form of mentors. Talk to people and find mentors, find people that will help you. As a business owner, I'm also a big believer in paying for help. You're in business, you expect to get paid for your service. Be prepared to pay other people for their services. Whether it is a coach, a marketing specialist, someone to come in, a business analyst, someone to come in and help you. And then there's all kinds of great free resources out there as well that will offer you help. There are, there's the SBC, so the Small Business Administration. They have great classes. SCORE is another great resource. There's all kinds of places out there where you can get help in starting and running and managing and growing your business. And even helping you figure out if your idea is a great idea, and how to crystallize that and condense it. So just know that if you don't, you will be so overwhelmed that there will be times when you feel like you can't move forward. So take a moment, swallow a little bit of that pride and ask for that help. Find a community. Owning a business can be lonely, and your community will save you. Talk to other business owners, join business groups, join networking groups. Talk to people that aren't in the business world, because sometimes you'll need a break from talking about business. When I first started my business, I've always been pretty independent and pretty low-key, and my first year in business, my husband would come home and I would jump on him like a puppy and be like, pay attention to me, because I'd been alone all day, kind of sitting at my desk working on my computer. I'd have meetings with clients and things like that, but I got really, really lonely until I started building a community of people. And sometimes it's a community of people that is a social community first, and then it becomes a business community. One of the things that I have found is I have gotten more clients from going out and being social and connecting with people on a real level than I ever got by the hardcore networking, cold calling, anything like that. Forging those real connections will make all the difference in the world for you. I know that one of your previous speakers really talked about relationships, and I will just second that relationships are really important. Community is important. And then also, don't make yourself a part of a community with the expectation of getting anything back. Be a part of the community for the sake of the community, and know that you get whatever you give. So start there. Give back. This is so important. As a business owner, you are a leader in your community no matter what. By virtue and nature of what you are and what you do. So never forget all the help that you received, all the people that were invested in your success, all the people that were your cheerleaders. When I walked away from my career to start a business, it was non-traditional. It was not something, I hadn't known a lot of people that had done that. But I had my husband as a cheerleader. I called my dad, I called my brother, I let my extended family know this is what I'm doing. And they were all probably nervous for me, but they also all said, do it. You can do this. You can do this. I was talking to my dad, and he's the one that reminded me that I had already been a business owner when I was 8 years old. I was talking to my brother, and he introduced me to several mentors that he himself had had. And I got to sit down and have conversations with them as I was starting my own business. As I was talking to my parents, my dad also reminded me that my grandmother, who is an immigrant to this country as a single mom, that when she came to this country, she started 2 businesses and was able to have a tremendous impact on her community. And she did that as a single mom. So I came from a line of entrepreneurs dating back along my dad's side of the family. All those things helped me get where I am, and all those things are reasons why I want to encourage other people on this amazing path, and also to pay it forward. So as you are going through your journey as an entrepreneur, as somebody that is, progressing through college and into life, remember to pay it forward to those people that have helped you and invested in you. And a lot of times their investment is time. So don't think about giving back as just donating money. Think about it as donating time. Think about it as having that impact in your community where you're actually trying to make a difference in your small corner of the world by paying it forward. These are 2 of my very good friends. This is Blake and Jen. They are the owners of Hell's Backbone Grill. It's in Boulder, Utah. So tiny little town. And they were up for a James Beard Award this year. Actually, for the past 5 years, they've been nominated. For those of you that don't know, the James Beard Award is the Oscars of food. It's like being nominated for Best Picture. It is a huge deal and a huge honor, and they were projected to win this year. Then because of COVID, guess what happened? They pulled the James Beard Awards for this year. They decided to reevaluate. In this tiny little intimate restaurant that relies on tourism in Boulder, Utah, because Boulder, Utah is population 300. They're open only for a few months out of the year. This tiny little restaurant was on the verge of going out of business. So many people stepped up to help them because they've given so much for their community. It was incredibly touching to see. They managed to get an online store selling their cookie mixes and baking mixes and spice mixes. They got that up and online with help from their community. I worked with them on their email newsletter campaigns, and I did that because this is a special spot, and I want to make sure that it's here later. A lot of things have changed in this past year. When I first spoke and we first made arrangements for me to come down here, I had just signed a contract with Cirque du Soleil to do a bunch of their marketing and PR and events for a performance that was going to run for 8 weeks in Salt Lake City. I was in final talks with Ballet West to handle all of their marketing and PR. I was in the verge of signing a contract with the Gateway in Salt Lake City to do all the marketing and PR and events for the mall there. I signed the contract for Cirque du Soleil on March 15th. Guess what happened on March 16th of this year? Big changes. Everything shut down. I got a phone call that was literally, a phone call from Cirque du Soleil that said, hey, we had to cancel your flight to New Orleans where you're going to come meet with us. We're not going to come. I work with a lot of restaurant clients, and so suddenly I had to watch all of my restaurant clients wonder if they were going to be in business in 2 weeks. And we had to jump in and scramble to help them with messaging that was changing every single day. Am I open? Am I not open? Am I allowed to have people here. Can I do takeout? Can I do delivery? What does this look like? Can I build a patio? And messaging was changing every single day. We did that, and we actually didn't charge any of our clients for any of that work because it was the right thing to do. They had supported me. It was the least I could do to support them through one of the scariest times. And it was scary because I was also like, am I going to lose my business? None of us know what's going to happen. But being resilient, giving back, all those things, those prepare you to stay and to stick and to have an impact for a longer amount of time. So most of all, as you are working on starting your own business, as you're doing this thing, as you're coming up with ideas, as you are growing and progressing, showcase who you are. Be bold, be flexible, be creative. Be humble enough to ask for help. Be community-oriented, be willing to give back. And finally, one thing that I would tack on here that I haven't necessarily said yet is develop some grit. Develop the ability to stick to something even when it's hard. And that, I think, is probably the biggest takeaway, is sticking with something and being able to see it through. Even if you have to pivot, even if you have to change, you're already doing that. Just by virtue of being here and being in college during one of the most challenging years we've ever seen. You are showing your grit and determination. And for that, I applaud you. Thank you so much for letting me be here. I really appreciate it. And we do have a little bit of extra time if anybody has any questions. Yes, please.
What are some of the communities that you joined?
So the question is, what are some of the communities that I joined? So one of the communities that I joined is the Utah Women's Networking Group. So as a woman entrepreneur, it's really important to hang out with other women entrepreneurs. Women the way that women collaborate in business is something that I think should be emulated, and being around other women business owners is a great way to remind yourself, I can do this. So that was one. Another one is I always recommend finding industry groups that are related to whatever your industry is. And then find some sort of social group, find a book club, find something that is not related to business that just kind of feeds your soul. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, are these like Facebook groups that you're talking about?
Yeah, so are they Facebook groups? Some of them are Facebook groups, some of them are just groups that I've kind of found out and about. LinkedIn groups are a really good one if you take the time to find the right one. But I also like groups where they occasionally meet in person, even if it's via Zoom or socially distanced for right now. I like having that face-to-face time with people. I think it makes a big difference. Great question.
How did you start marketing your company to others when you just first started out?
Yeah. So the question was, how did I start marketing my company to other people when I first started out? So remember, I left my job. October 1st was my first day away. And I took a minute to be sad. I took a day where I was like, I'm just going to mope for a minute. This is a scary thing. I'm going to allow myself to be scared. And then that following Monday, I sat down and I was like, I'm going to send out 3 emails. And if I can get one client, I'm going to dive in and do this business owner thing. And if I can't, maybe I'll brush up my resume and see what I can do. At the end of that first day, I had 3 clients. Initially, it's word of mouth. Initially, you're going to most likely get people buying from you that already know you. So put it out there. One of the things that surprised me is as I was starting my business, 2 years later, I had people come up to me and be like, so how are things at Whole Foods Market? What about that Amazon takeover? And I was like, I haven't been there for 2 years. And the reason being is I hadn't done a good enough job telling people what I was doing and that I'd made a change. And so making sure that people know, one, what you're doing, two, that you're not afraid to reach out directly to people that you know might need your services. And then the other way, honestly, that I marketed my company, I taught classes for free. So I went to Women's Business Center of Utah. I went to SCORE. I went to the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. And I said, here's a list of things that I can tell people about that might support them. Can I come and teach a class? I'll do it for free. And that was a huge brand building opportunity for me. Another thing was through being very consistent on social media, my business social media pages. That takes time. It took about 2 years before I got my first client through that. But guess what? Now I get people reaching out every single month that are like, I loved your live stream video. I loved this conversation you had with this client. And so that's something else that's made a difference long term for me. Great question. What else? Yes?
So you mentioned earlier when you were leaving Whole Foods and that if you don't take opportunities that you'll end up losing them, but were you afraid that there was other opportunities within Whole Foods that you'd be losing as well?
That is a great question. So the question is, if you don't take an opportunity and you're worried about losing them, how do you weigh that against another possible opportunity? That fear of missing out is real for all of us. For me, the way I made my decision was ultimately, what do I really want out of life? For me, I wanted some flexibility to travel. I wanted a schedule that, I'm not afraid of hard work. I can work really hard, but I wanted a schedule that would benefit and work around my hard work that would still leave me time for myself. And I really wanted all of my hard work to benefit me and my family. And so when I was looking at all those different things and kind of weighing them back and forth, I realized that nothing here at Whole Foods could get me those things. I had a really set in stone schedule. I had 20 events that I was producing every month. It made it really hard to go out of town even for a weekend. I was stressed out all the time and not a great person to be around for my family. And so because of those things, that's what made the decision easier. Anything that I get here isn't going to benefit me here in the long term. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Yes?
You say to be willing to give back. I feel like majorly I have a problem identifying who or where or when to give back to. How do you go about that?
Yeah, so talking about giving back, how do you identify where and whom and how to give back? That is a really good question and a little bit hard to identify. The place that I always start is what is the thing that makes me light up inside when I'm giving back? Where is my passion? I am passionate about promoting other women entrepreneurs. I am passionate about marketing and telling a story, and I'm passionate about making sure that small businesses can survive and thrive. And so for me, there have even been times where I've posted on on some of my social pages, hey, I have extra time this week. Does anybody need anything? And then eventually you'll just start noticing. You'll start to get sensitive about things, and you'll start to see, oh, this person in my networking group seems to be having a hard time. So listening to that voice in your head and not just brushing it by and saying, maybe I need to do a quick little reach out and just see, hey, are you doing okay? Can I help you with anything? Is there anything you need? Sometimes helping is just hey, do you need a shoulder to cry on for a minute? I've been there too. So thank you so much. I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap up, but thank you again, everyone, for having me.
Lydia, thank you so much for being here. One of the things that we try to do with this class is allow you to hear from people who are a little bit farther down a road that most of you are going to go down. and hear their perspective on what it looks like. And the advice that she has here, regardless of where you're headed, will stand you. It will do you right. So we're again thankful for Lydia and hope that you will
Thank
come back
you.
and visit us again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.